Hi, my name is Sakari Tolppanen. Welcome to learn about sustainable energy. Today our guest is Peter Lund, professor in advanced energy systems at Aalto University in Finland. He has done significant work on energy systems and innovation and has over 500 scientific publications. He is especially interested in the technological, business, and political side of large-scale renewable energy projects. He is the member of several advisory boards and, as an example, has given advice to the government of Finland on renewable energy and its possibilities. It is a great honor to have Professor Peter Lund with us, and I'm sure there is much we can learn from him. Hey Peter, welcome to the studio. It's great to have you here today. Before we get into your lecture, I would want to ask you a few questions. So you will be talking about sustainable development and sustainable growth. And so currently humans are over-consuming. And so my first question would be, what would the world be like if we would actually achieve sustainability?
I think the world would be quite different in many aspects. And first of all, thinking us as human beings, I think the world would be much more just. So the world is quite injustice, and I think justice is a part of the sustainable development. Of course, the environmental degradation, all the problems that we have with environment would be partly solved. So I think there would be a better environment, better living conditions, and maybe humans would be more living in harmony with the nature. So the sustainability itself, when that's realized, that attribute in a way contains a lot of positive things.
So what do you see as some of the things that we would need to do to actually achieve sustainable development or sustainability?
I think that there's a range of issues that we need to address, which would fall within a category what I call socio-economic issues. So there's social issues, economic issues, and even technological issues which need to be addressed. If we think about a social part is I think, again, the question of justice. I mean, we have a lot of poor people. There's close to 1.5 billion people without any electricity or any energy services, which can't afford energy, which is very important for a decent living standard. That's part of the justice. We here in the north, in the industrialist countries, use most of the resources on this planet. How do we share the resources in a way that there's a hope for better life in even the developing countries? So the social issues, I think, would be very important, and justice is part of that. Now, in terms of economy, I think our economy is actually the problem for the environment problems and also for the sustainability, in the sense that how the economy works. It takes resources from the nature and puts back the pollution to the nature. In some way, we need to reform the economy to a green economy, so that yes, we can have a growth, but we don't actually deplete the resources that we have in the nature, and we don't destroy the nature. So economy needs some kind of reformation, definitely. And in terms of technology, I think, yes, it's about cleaner technologies. At the very end, it's about technology. And so the more we have cleaner technologies which use renewable energy sources, or the more we recycle resources, I think that's also part of the picture. So I think there's not a single silver bullet in a way for the question, but I think there's a range of issues which need to be addressed in parallel.
So you mentioned societal issues and economic issues, and these are all very big issues. And sometimes when I look at the big picture, I find that things aren't moving forward, or they're not moving forward at least as fast as maybe we would hope. So what's your perception? Are things moving forward?
Well, I think that the problem very often when we think about time and change is that when we live in the myth of the change, we don't see that. And I think we need to just take slightly a time horizon here. If we look back time, let's say 30 to 40 years back in time, and let's look forward further. I think the gradient, though we have a lot of problems here on our planet, the gradient is going to better, I would say, development. And we see that many nations are, and many of the decision makers are, have a much better conscious about the problems. But it takes time. I think we need to allow some time, but it's important to see that we're going the right way. I think we are starting to go the right way. The pace may not be the best one, but I think once it starts to roll, it's like a snowball effect. Once it starts to take off, I think then it goes more rapid. But I think it's important that people understand the issues and people take more responsibility. After that attitudes change, then it's time for action. I think we are going that way, but it takes time, definitely.
Okay, so there's still hope.
I think there's a hope, and we should never give up our hope. That's very important, and I think very often when we see these problems, and in particular when we see the statistics, it doesn't look that good. I think people very often get desperate, but I think it's not right. We should be optimistic, we should have hope, but also we should take action. That's important.
Great. So you mentioned that technology is one of the big issues or one of the problems that we need to solve, but also you mentioned actions, and those also go for individual actions. So what would you say are the most important things that us as individuals could do to help achieve sustainable growth?
Sustainable growth, in the very end, is really about our actions on individual level. We, as the people, we really make the solutions, and so the way we choose, for instance, the way we live or how we choose our product that we buy, we should be slightly more conscious to see that, okay, let's look on the product description. How much energy resources have we used there? Is this a labeled product? So for instance, if I go to buying a refrigerator, just look at the energy labeling. If it's an E-labeled refrigerator, that's not good, but if it's A, that's good. So these kind of small choices that we do every day, that actually leads to a much better future. So I think there's not a hocus pocus here that's a big thing, but it's just these small choices which are based on actually getting more information about the background of products, how good the products are, which again I think goes back to the policymakers, that they need to enforce that for instance there's adequately information available when people make the decision. Very often we think about that these kind of green products, sustainable products would be, or services would be much more expensive than the kind of ordinary products. And I think that's not the case. Actually, on a life cycle basis, if you look on the investment cost and the running cost, a green product actually is very often cheaper than the kind of old, dirty brown products. Let me take just one example, is the light bulb. If you think about the most modern light bulbs, which are based on LED technology, they consume just about 5% of the electricity than the old incandescent lamp, but gave the same lighting level. So over the life cycle, I would very often actually save money already when I go for green products. But unfortunately, an ordinary consumer doesn't know all these kind of goodies that we have with the green and sustainable products. And that's where I think policymakers have much larger responsibility than they perceive, is that, yes, they need to actually lead the way. They need also to put in place legislation that enforce and people to do these good decisions.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think it comes also down to initial investment. In the start, you might pay more for the LED light bulb, but you need to look at the whole life cycle. So
that's true, and we are as individuals very seldom we think about life cycle things, and this may be we need to change in attitude. And I think, for instance, it starts in the schools. Think about the school children and the students. I think the new generations are much more prone to new information. And that information should also actually include sustainable information. And that's how the changes come. And I think sometimes children teach their parents, because the parents are not aware about these kind of things. So I think education, information is extremely important. It's where the whole kind of change of pace of development starts.
Great. Well, thank you for your great insights. I'm looking forward to your lecture.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.